Freddy Montes has been at the same company for 18 and a half years. In tech, that's almost unheard of. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is what he did with those 18 years. He started writing code. He ended up deciding what gets built, why it gets built, and how AI is going to change every single step of that process. And here's what nobody tells you about that kind of journey. It doesn't happen because you stop being technical. It happens because you never do. In this episode, Freddy is going to take us through three things: how staying in one place for nearly 2 decades made him more dangerous, not less; why he told his design team to throw Figma in the trash; and what he's building right now that could change how every person in his company, not just engineers, does their job. At the end of this conversation, you are going to see your own career differently, whether you're deep in the code or already making product decisions. This is the Scaling Dilemma. So, Freddy, you've been at .cms 18 and a half years, right?
Yes.
In tech industry, that's basically a geological era. So most engineers change jobs over 2 or 3 years for saying something, right? But most of them, they just go. And I remember like 10 years ago, I don't know if you remember, but there were like 10 months or probably 8 months, and they were jumping from one job to another, right? Sometimes less than that. So
You
what
took,
yeah, sorry, what?
no, yeah, 2020 during COVID, like it was like literally month.
Exactly, exactly. But the question is, what kept you at the same company for nearly 2 decades?
They keep throwing problems at me, basically. Bigger and harder problems.
Yeah.
That's what basically kept me there. Like every time I get to a project and we finish it, it was like, okay, now let's do this other crazy stuff. And I kind of get addicted to it. Like I'm always want to solve more complex problems.
Okay.
Um, and I think that is a combination of me being a curious person,
Mm-hmm.
me being like I'm always trying to learn new things, and the way that when I get to the company, I basically I didn't work directly in the product.
Yeah.
I worked with customers. Actually, I was working in the implementation side
Mhm.
of the CMS itself. And then all of a sudden they moved me to product, and I was like, okay, now this is what I wanted to do. Like, and I get into I get into product in a kind of advantage position because I knew the product from the user perspective.
Uh-huh.
So when I get into the product, I already understand what problem needs to be solved, right? And yeah, I just keep rolling.
So, and I thought you were about to say something like they were keep throwing me money at, at me, right? Because
No,
you
yeah,
mentioned COVID and some of that.
there is money around it as well. Like, don't get me wrong, a couple of times I got offers, and when I come back to my bosses, which is basically the co-founders directly, I was like, guy, I got this offer, and they was like, no, you're not going, and then throw it a counter offer, right? And I was like, okay,
Yeah. So there was actually a moment when you seriously considered leaving.
oh yeah, there were a couple of times that I got good offers.
Yeah. So, and in this team, in this time, in these 18 years, almost 2 decades, did the company change around you, or did you change within it, or both?
The company definitely changed. Like it
Mhm.
growth in with around 70 people. When I got in, there were like 20, which is for a company in tech, it's not a huge change. Like it's not a big change. Um, but for us, we always been very steady. We are not. We work like a startup in terms of like product and engineering,
Mhm.
but in terms of finance, we're a very steady, stable company. Um, so definitely that has been steady in a way. Like I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember. Um, we got we got an investment, right? But it wasn't like a typical venture capital investment. It was more like a aqua hire kind of thing. Like an investor firms decided to buy the company, and they made a business, they made a negotiation around it, and the co-founders are still with the company. they're still own piece of the company, and we get some injection of capital, which allows us to grow a little bit more, right? That was definitely a change because what happens there, it was even though we still work a little bit as a startup, we start we start to having people moving into the right seats.
Okay.
That even includes me, right? So we were like, we were a little bit more like everybody do as much as they can when they can, and we just like handpicking people that we consider that they have certain strengths to solve certain problems. But then when we get into this new deal, we were like, no, okay, we need to organize this.
Oh,
And one of the things that actually happened is that we created the product team that didn't exist.
okay.
That didn't exist in like 4 years ago. Product was actually me and the two co-founders in Slack making decisions.
Yeah.
Right, that was pretty much what it is. Um,
But
and then we start formalizing that,
yeah.
and now we have a proper product team.
Oh, that's a major shift, right? I mean, when the moment that you not just decide how something is built, but why it's being built, and what should be built instead. That's a major shift. But when did you first realize your identity was shifting from builder to decision maker?
So I I I get to tech. I got into tech
Mm-hmm.
from design, right? So I went to school for a design degree, right?
Oh, okay.
Um, I didn't went. I try to go to into computer science, and I
Uh-huh.
suck at it at
Okay.
school. Like
Yeah.
I literally suck at it. But during that time, I was already programming by myself. I was doing HTML and CSS and a little piece of JavaScript here and there, and I was like, just going online and try to figure it out how to build things, like out of just curiosity, like, okay, what is a website? What is a browser? Why this thing renders here? Like I didn't even use the word render, but what is showing here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
based on that, I was like, okay, I learned HTML, and then I was in the university and there was a course about HTML and CSS, and I was like, okay, this kind of resonates with what I'm doing, and I enrolled into that course and I took it, and I was keep going, right? And at the same time, I was trying to go into computer science. It didn't work for me, and I changed to design,
Mm-hmm.
and I did super well in design. Like I not only feel really well there, um, and it was graphic design. It wasn't like UI or UX or anything like that. That didn't exist, at least in my country at that time. We're talking about 2000, 2002, around those times. So
Uh-huh.
maybe already existed in other places, but I'm coming from Venezuela, and there wasn't a the science or the profession that is right now, right? So I went into graphic design, and what I did, that every time I have to build something, that I can choose the medium. Like, let's say I have to build a campaign about X brand, right? And I can choose the mediums. I always choose digital. So I was doing like websites or CD-ROMs or flash animations, whatever, right? Everything
Yeah.
digital. Um,
Flash
so I
animation, bro. I mean, that
Yeah,
that rings a
flash
bell.
animation.
Yeah. Wow.
And right after graduation, I got my first job in a software shop down in Venezuela.
Yeah. And at a .cms, when you're telling me that then there was the the building of this team of product, right? What
Mhm.
happened? I mean, you were at .cms, you started as a front end. That's what I understand,
Yeah.
and then you moved to
So
product, right?
yeah, I
So
started as a front end,
uh-huh.
and like we got a customer, and a customer said, I need you guys to implement the CMS for me,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave me a Photoshop file,
Mm-hmm.
and I turned it into HTML and CSS, and then I turned it into .cms themes and templates. Right, that was my day to day job.
Mm-hmm.
But because I knew design and I knew HTML and CSS, I was able to say, like, I mean, your PDF, your PSD, your Photoshop file is fine,
Mm-hmm.
but if you do these changes, it's gonna work better for you. You're gonna be X, Y, and Z benefits. It's gonna be faster, whatever. Like I always knew, because I knew design and I knew programming. I was sitting in the middle, and I was able to say, if you change the design this way, that still was a good design because I was coming from design. Like I wasn't breaking any rules on anything.
Yeah.
Your website is gonna work better because X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
right? So I'm always in the middle, and then it was like, okay, cool, let's agree on it. And I was able to even change the Photoshop files myself. I got the freedom to do that and propose back to the customer.
Hmm.
And then we keep doing that, and then we keep doing that. Because of that reason, they start seeing like, okay, this guy might be good in our product and engineer
Hmm.
um, teams. So they moved me in one of our products and engineer teams, right? And there I was still a front end developer, but
Hmm.
instead of building or implementing websites for our customers, I was working in the product, like in the back office of the product.
But you were still running code, right? The
I was
code.
still that I was writing code all the time. Yeah, but it was
Now,
like, okay, the edit code, the edit screen, it doesn't work, and we need to redesign it. Okay, cool. I think it should look like this. And I made a prototype and what do we think about this, and then we implemented it.
yeah. And nowadays, do you still run code or not?
Oh my god, now
No.
more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I thought that being VP, you were just making decisions, but not like
I
being.
am. I am making decisions, but the truth is, I build. A
Mhm.
lot of the time, the decisions that I make is because I understand what decision needs to be made because I build something.
Okay.
Right? So I get some insight from a customer or from a sales deal or from a support ticket or from me going and Reddit into the subreddit of CMSs or like looking at LinkedIn or what other CMSs are doing and the comments that people left. Like I'm always like going around, like understanding how people use CMSs.
Hmm.
And the easiest way that I have to make that decision is like I can what can I build to solve this problem? Like after I identify the problem, how can I solve it? I wish I am the typical product manager kind of thing that can put things into words, into
Hmm.
into into documents. But from my experience, and maybe it's because of my career development, it works way better if I can get to the engineering team and said, look, guys, I built this thing. It's not production ready, but it works. I already proved these ideas,
Yeah.
right? So take a look at this. And you can get people engaged with that and they
Hmm.
can roll with it. And that you can get people really quick engaged with a prototype or a product or something than with a document.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. So Freddy spent nearly a decade as a front developer. And by his own admission, the transition into product felt natural, maybe even inevitable. But here's the problem with stories that feel natural, they make it sound easy. Like one day you're writing code, and the next day you're leading a product team, and everything just clicked. That's not what happened. What Freddy described was something harder and more interesting. He had strong opinions. He always had strong opinions, but he had to learn that having the right idea and getting people to move on it are two completely different skills. You can say, this is what we're doing because of your position, but in the long run, it doesn't work. That's not a product insight, that's a leadership insight. And it took him years to learn it. So the question going is this: what does it actually look like when someone with deep technical roots tries to install a completely new way of working into an entire team? And what happens when that someone tells his designers to stop using the tool they built their entire career around? And doing this shift, did there was there anything that you had to unlearn to get into the position? I mean, like you speak about this, and it seems like a seamless shift, right? Like being fronted, but I was always really good at designing, right? And I was into the product and whatever. So this change just feel naturally. But now that you were there as developing the product, as building the product, was there something that you need to change, something in the way you were used to work as a front end? What was the difference?
Um, there have been a lot of changes,
Hmm.
like a lot of changes in me as a person,
Yep.
or me as a professional, as I move between all these different positions that I've been. Um, I never had problems working in teams. Like that's fine. I can work in teams fairly easy. Um, I have strong opinions. So
Yep.
as I start moving into more leadership positions, I realized very quick that even though you have strong positions or you have strong ideas, you gotta know how to sell it,
Yeah.
right? Like even though you are in the top position, if you get an imposed the idea and you let everybody like say, like you can set because of your position, you can say this is what we're going to do and that's it. I don't want to hear anything else. That's probably okay-ish,
Hmm.
but on the long run, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. What you need is to make sure that people are on board with your idea, because people can get your idea and make it like 10 times better.
Yeah.
But if you force the idea into them, they're just gonna build that. So you don't have to say anything else, and they, you're back, you're out of their backs, basically. So like I had to learn that. Um Managing people is hard. Like when you have a team of people and you have to manage people, I definitely wasn't ready for it. So I had to go back to my learning and start reading about it. I I I have the I think I have a little bit of luck that I know people in the industry that have way more experience than me managing people, and I can reach out and I can say, "Hey, I'm doing this. What do you think?" Blah blah blah. So I'm very grateful for that. That I can reach out to people that are in positions that are managing way more people than me, and they can help me or point me in the right direction. Even internally inside CMS, I can reach out to more senior, not seniors, but like people that have way more experience than me managing people,
Yeah.
and they can help me out with that. But it was definitely another difficult thing that for me to grasp.
Got it. Got it. By the way, the other day I was watching one of the of your lives that you have with what is this guy's name? Aniva, right?
Anyway, yeah,
Aniva. So it was a comment that you mentioned. Now that you are speaking about selling ideas and stuff, you say something like, um, "Let's throw out Figma or something like that. We're not gonna use Figma or Figma's dead." I remember it was like a really hard idea, right?
yes,
What,
yeah.
what, what can
It's
you tell me
it's
about that?
it's yeah. It's nearly that. It's like I'm ditching Figma out
Mhm.
of the product team completely.
Yeah,
Of course, I'm not saying that Figma that you can do that in all the teams, but at least in the current position that we have, that we are right now, we can definitely do that. And the main reason is because we already have our component library ready. So most of the product work that we do
hmm,
is just assembling components, and it's 10x faster to assemble components with AI tools that dragging and dropping and clicking in Figma,
hmm,
especially because Figma as default is static. Like you have one screen and then you show the screen. And what actually developers need to perform their work better is not the screen is static, it's the flow. Like what they need is what happened when I click here, how this thing looks like when it's loading, what happened if there is an error, right? Normally in Figma, you have to build and you have to create all those states. And then you go into prototype mode and you start like literally connecting cables between a button and another screen and a button and another screen.
yeah.
And it can take literally weeks to do a proper prototype. And now you can do that same prototype in minutes
With
using
10 minutes.
Lovable or B0 or any of that.
Yeah,
So I said to the designer, I don't want you in Figma anymore because you're spending 2 weeks in a prototype that when you show it and somebody said, oh, but this flow is not right or it can be better because X, Y, and Z, that's 2 weeks of your work and then you got to start over because reconnecting those cables is super hard and not easy to maintain.
yeah.
While doing that in AI, we normally we do it in the same meeting. In the same meeting, we just prompt it and fix it and say, what do you think about it? Oh, yeah, that's what I said,
That's
right?
awesome.
So we're literally killing Figma out of the product. And it's been hard because getting a designer out of Figma,
Hmm.
oh
Oh
man,
man. I suppose. I mean, I haven't seen any, but I suppose that there has to be someone that has a Figma tattoo on on a part of his body, right? Don't you
Oh,
think?
I bet. I bet there are multiple.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, Freddie. One of the things you've talked about is moving your team away from documentation, heavy process towards something more execution first, right? Like in this Figma scenario, where developers don't just execute specs, they own outcomes. That's not a process change, right? That's a cultural change,
That's
and
a
you.
cultural change.
Yeah, and you didn't just talk about it. You actually rolled out a developer-led feature ownership model. Can you walk me through that? What did you do, and how do you do that?
Well, it started with doing it myself.
Hmm.
Like I need to understand the process that I'm trying to roll out. So when I started experimenting with AI a couple of years ago, I realized very, very quick that so let me go even let me go back a little bit. So
Uh-huh.
I've been talking about this idea of product engineering for at least 4 or 5 years, right? And it's this idea of like we used to be as a developers, we used to be valued and paid because we write lines of code, right? There was never an attachment and the value that we produce um, by measuring the problems that those lines solve or the money that generates to the company ever. Like most of the developers, but I don't know if it's most, but a lot of the developers out there were always working from like, I grab a Jira task, I
Hmm.
read it, sometimes they read it, and I create a pull request and I merge it, and then I grab another Jira task, and that's my work. They have no idea how that Jira task connect to the bigger picture, to the bigger product, and to the finance of that product, to the user of that product. They don't know what the users are. They have no idea of any of that, right? And developers were paid for that for years. Like it was great, and it started like now you got a project management, then you got a
Hmm.
scrum master, then you got a product manager, and there was like layers of people and management
Hmm.
between the value that the code produced and the producer of the code. Like there were layers of people between that, right? And in COVID, we even saw that even more because we hired, well, no we, but people start hiring way more technical people, and we got more Scrum mastering and more product ownership and all these middle management things, right? And meetings and meetings and meetings, right? Um, and then when when AI started getting popular, 2023, ChatGPT and all that, right?
Hmm.
Um, you were like, okay, but now as a developer, I start noticing like, okay, but I can generate code extremely fast, right? And I start like for the results that I was seeing, I started spending way more time, which I would already have because it was my job at the time. I started spending way more time in the planning
Hmm.
and the strategy than in the execution.
Cool.
Execution for me was writing the code, right? And I was like, this is it. This is the nail in the coffin of the, I don't like to use this word, but like I think it's the best way to define it of the code monkeys. Like,
Yeah.
these people that get paid for writing code and only write code and just write code. Like when I started using AI, I was like, this is it. This is the last. I mean, for me, it was already a transformation that I was pitching internally in the company. Like from the product side, I was grabbing developers and I was saying, guys, look at what the customer is saying. I have this idea, but I don't know what you guys think. I mean, what about if we just solve this problem this way? Like we spend weeks in discussions, but there were not like discussions on, this button should be red.
The
No,
color.
it
I
was
was
this.
thinking about the same thing.
Yeah,
Right?
no, like, or it was like, oh no, this table needs pagination, or does it need infinity scroll? Like
Uh-huh.
there weren't discussions about that. It was
Yeah.
discussion about how do we want the user to use us. Like we spend a lot of time doing that. I remember that when we're developing an SDK,
Mhm.
And when we start going at the planning, we plan how the user use the SDK, and then when that was set in stone, we start developing the internal parts.
Okay.
And this thing we already decided this cannot change. Like how the customer is going to use this way. No matter what they have to do internally, we don't care, but we already decide. And we spend a lot of time saying like, oh no, when the customer is going to use us, he has to pass the authorization token and the URL, but he needs to pass the site ID and needs to pass this and this and that. And then he called this method, and it was like every time we put something out, I was like, I think we can make it simpler.
Yeah.
Like, what about if we do it X, Y, and Z? What about if like it was around that? Like, how we're going to make it easier for people to use without even thinking. Like, well, what it will take that for us to build it? We didn't care. We were trying to design the best experience that we can, and everything was around that way.
And
So,
and, and it was
we're-
everything about context, right? I mean, getting the context instead of just coding.
yeah, it was just like understanding the problem to some extent that when you're writing the code, like
Hmm.
you understood it so well that writing the code was the easy part,
Yeah.
right? And then I had like the team that I was leading at that time, they were really sharp into that. We get to a point that they were really sharp into that. And when AI came in, they were already ready for that scenario, right?
Hmm.
They weren't like going crazy in the code. Um, they were like going crazy after, oh, this thing doesn't feel right. Like when I'm using it myself, it just feel weird.
Yeah.
Like and coming back to us and product and said, guys, I don't think that this is going to work because X, Y, and Z. What about what about this, right? Um, so I'll think, and it's happening, and I've been saying that for years now that all the engineers are product people,
Okay.
even if they don't know or they don't want it to be. They are product people, and the engineers that are most successful that I know,
Hmm.
they are product people. Like they use their engineering skills not to define code or how the code will work, but how the software will work and how the user will interact to it and now how the agent will interact to it,
Okay.
right? So they are focusing on how this thing is going to work and how I can make that working the best way possible. And the implementation, I don't care. Do I have to write more or less code because of the solution? I don't care.
Doesn't matter anymore.
That doesn't matter anymore.
Wow. Wow, bro. I mean, yes, I'm astonished. Here's what Freddy figured out before most people were even asking the question. AI doesn't change what good product work looks like. It just makes the cost of that product work catastrophic. If your developers are disconnected from the problem they're solving, if they're just grabbing Jira tickets and closing them without understanding why, AI makes that faster, which means you ship the grown thing faster at scale. But if your team actually understands the problem, if they own the outcome, not just implementation, then AI becomes a multiplier on exactly the right thing. That's why Freddy spent years pushing what he called product engineering before AI made it urgent. He wasn't ahead of the trend, he was just paying attention to what actually created value. And now that AI is here, he's taking the same philosophy and applying it to something much bigger than a single team. In the next couple of questions, he shows us what happens when you try to solve the oldest problem in every company: communication, with the same tools he used to fix his product process. I want to talk about AI, but not the way it usually gets talked about on shows like this. No, which not which model is winning the benchmark wars, or not which tool just launched. We've been doing something more interesting. You've
Oh,
been
thanks God,
built.
because I don't know.
Well, that's what I want to believe, right? You've been building what you call a company operating system using AI agent, not just for engineering workflows, but for product, right? For strategy, for how decisions get made and remembered across the organization. So here comes the question: what does that actually look like today? and what surprised you most about building it?
So if you think about it, most of the problems that companies needs to solve internally is communication, right? Every time that an individual within a company doesn't do a good job for whatever reason, mostly most of the time is because he doesn't know enough. He doesn't know enough about anything he needs to know in order to solve that problem, talk to that customer, develop that functionality, design that functionality, do that code review, whatever is about know things. It's about know about everything around the company, right? That's for me. That's why there are companies founded around that idea. That's why we have Confluence. That's why we have Jira. That's how
Mhm.
we have knowledge bases and intranet. Those are tools that are trying to solve the main issue, which is internal communication, right? Like there are literally teams in big companies focused on making sure that the communication coming from the CEO, is streamed down all the way down as much as possible. That was actually why we had project managers and product owners and project managers and all these managers. The idea it was like to solve and making sure that people understand this or understand everything in order to perform their work to the best possible, right?
Mhm.
And we had that problem. We're 70 people. It's not that many, but we had that problem. Uh, Content, data, and information is spread across uh, Google Drive and HubSpot and emails and Slack and Gone calls, like a lot of places. And every time some people go to answer a support tickets, or some people need to go into get ready for a meeting, they need to start scattered for this information everywhere. Right? That's the one thing that we know that it was a problem. Um, we have meetings every quarter and every year where we explain what are the goals for the quarter and the goals for the year. But the truth is that people are always trying to do their work. And that information that you gave at the beginning of the quarter or the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
2 months, 1 month, 2 weeks later, people kind of forget about it. And it's not it's somewhere in the slides or in a Google Docs, right? So that was my first mindset. I was like, what we have is, or what every company has, I think, is a communication issue. Is that where is the information that I need to perform my job the best?
Okay.
So when I start playing around with AI, I start using it for myself. Like I'm probably one of the people that need most information in order to make decisions within the company, being the VP of product, right?
Mhm.
Like I can move a button to to the right to solve two customer problems and break eight customers, right?
Got it.
That happens. So I need to understand as much as possible. Every time I'm making one of these decisions, I need to go to different systems and try to like, okay, I'm not breaking anybody. I'm trying to do this in a way that is solve the most amount of people problems, X, Y, and Z. So what I started doing, it was like, okay, I use Cloud Code for development, but Cloud
Mhm.
Code is is an agent, is a general purpose agent, make up as a coding agent, right?
Yeah.
So I started doing these connections, and my cloud code was having access to my client success, which is an app that we use.
Yeah.
It had access to my Slack. It had access to my calendar. It had access to my Gmail. Then I have documents where I wrote the strategy for the year. I have documents where I wrote the strategy for AI, right? Because I use those documents to present it to the people.
Yeah.
Um, I have documents for the definition of each um, roadmap item. I have GitHub where people are writing the stories of the things that they're solving, right? All that information is a lot, right? And even for myself, that I kind of a developer, I can use the terminal very well and I can create scripts to scrap information from places and put it together. It was still a lot of work.
Mhm.
So basically, what I did was I started using Cloud Code and I create for myself something that I call internally a vault. Right? This
Okay.
vault, it was a folder that has a bunch of markdown files organized in a certain way that it was easy for the agent to find information and when he needed. I was
Okay.
using this principle called progressive disclosure, which is I'm going to give you an entry point, And then based on what I ask you to do, you will know where to go to look for the information that you need in order to perform that task, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I start filling this as a GitHub repo, markdown files, and I start just enrich that, enrich it and enrich it. And then internally, when people ask me questions, they start noticing like Freddy's answering those questions that it used to take them a few hours or even days before he scattered that information
Yeah.
immediately,
Oh my.
right?
Uh-huh.
And they were like, what the heck are you doing? Right. And I like, oh, I mean, because at that time I was like, I mean, this definitely has some potential, but it wasn't organized in a way that everybody can consume it. So the distribution was not there. Like it was for me, it was a little bit of mess, a lot of hard coded folders in my computer, a lot of scripting that I do manually. Like it wasn't there, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, you're right. And I started showing it internally to the product team. And there was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Oh my God.
Well, don't worry.
And and then but when they saw the terminal in Cloud Code,
Uh-huh.
they were like, oh, Freddy's programming with Thin, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't like we are used to Google Docs and Google Sheets and slides, but Freddy's doing this thing in the terminal and it's black with with green fonts and what is this and red sometimes and sometimes it's
Technical.
yellow.
Yeah.
It's too technical, right? It's Freddy doing his magic thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I show it to the leadership team, which is basically all the VPs, and they were like, "Dude, I don't know how you're gonna do this, but you gotta give this to us,
Okay.
right? But you something has to happen." So what I did was I start taking the manual integrations that I have and I start converting it into primitive of AI, like skills or NCP servers or agents, sub agents, depending what it was, right? Um, and then at the same time, I start talking with the VP of engineering and I said, I have this. He has something similar, but his was more into the technical side of things, more executive, and I need to distribute this. So we start looking internally what tool can we use. We decided to use the Claude Enterprise plans,
Mhm.
and Claude have chat, cowork, and code, right? Cloud Cowork is the closest thing to Cloud Code for non-technical people.
Okay.
However, I do think that Cloud Code is for non-technical people as well, but that's another story. I think that they're going that route.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's just the
I
setup. Is the only
it's
thing
just a
for you
startup.
is just the terminal. That's the
It's
difference.
just a terminal. But now in Cloud Desktop, you have Cloud Code. It's just
Uh-huh.
like I don't know. I try to use it. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to the terminal and so
Mhm.
fast and everything that I'm just there.
Yeah.
But what I did was I turned the bolt and all the skills and the agents into a Cloud plugin. So we started in the organization, and now we're rolling it out to internally to all the company.
Awesome.
And the idea is that they can use this bolt to. I need to be ready for my meeting with X, Y, and Z customer. Help me out, and this thing can go to HubSpot, to client success, to the emails from that customer, to a Slack, grab all that information and said, this is the last thing that happened to that customer. What do you want to know? Is there anything that you want me to prepare? Or like another thing that we're doing. The VP of customer success literally called me yesterday and said, dude, I need to automate this. I'm taking a screenshot of Grafana, which is dashboard for monitoring like server architecture and stuff like that. And I just screenshotted it and passed it to to Cloud something and generates a PDF that I sent to the customer.
Yeah.
And I was like, you literally have to just go to Cloud Code and say, go here, look at that data, and generate me a PDF with this specific. And if you want to automate it, you just said repeat this every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. Like the data is there. What is people is struggling internally right now is make how do I pull that data from there into my cloud? Um, okay, and I give you all this thing because precisely what it's doing is to connect it to the beginning is instead of you having people chasing the information everywhere, you have agent or multiple agents with tools that have access that give them access to that information to go and get it from there. based on the context or the question or the prompt that the human asked.
Well, I mean, what are you saving the company? Not in terms of money, but in terms of of of, of time. Like, I don't know, probably weeks, probably months, right?
Probably we're still in the early stage of the rollout.
Hmm.
I start internally with the product team because I have more direct contact with them. We're gonna have sessions with each, like we're grouping one engineering with two or three stakeholders or executive. So the executives already, I sent out a template and I said, what do you want to automate? Write it here. Of course, I asked a question like, what is the trigger? What do you want to automate? What do you want the output to look like? Because that's the thing. The engineer know how to automate, but they don't know how the output should look like, or what is the trigger, or what is the input. That's what the executive know.
Yeah.
So I was and send this out this form and they fill it out. And now I'm going to share that with the engineers and say, dude, how do you think we can build this for these guys? And then we're not gonna build it for them.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet with them and we're gonna teach them how to build it.
Yeah.
Because what I want in the as a product, what I want them is they know how to build things for themselves. That's my
I,
goal.
I'm wondering. I mean, I hear you, and I hear some other people speaking about the kind of the same thing, not the same, but really similar, right? How they make agents and they how can make people more productive and whatever. But this is a huge step forward for organizations, right? But then it 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 reminds me that like 3 months ago, probably 4 months ago, we wouldn't even believe that this thing could be done, right? We got OpenAI, ChatGPT, or wherever, and then just like these LLMs were training in a specific situations, but now they are agents. Now they have access. That this just the past week. Now you can give access to cloud to your computer and do the things for you, run the whole situation, and here what you're telling me, I think there is the line, right? You just give a prompt or give instructions. I don't know if we're gonna call it prompts anymore because it's just like speaking to another human. It feels that way. And but moving as fast as it is, how, I don't know when is where is gonna stop, you know? Probably right now you are taking the best of it, but we don't know in 2 months or 3 months what the landscape should look like. Don't you think? Like, what is the next best thing? And probably we're feeling like really comfortable with the situation right now because we have built these things. But what is it gonna be like in the future? Do you have any
I,
idea?
I don't know. And I don't think anybody can know.
Yeah.
Like you can try to guess, like because um it literally changed every day. Like it
Hmm.
used to be every week,
Yeah.
but the level of accelerations of releases is just incredible.
Yeah.
Anthropic has set the bar really, really high on development for product teams. Like I see those guys releasing stuff, and I was like I don't even like get it. Like I know they have a lot of money, I know they have a lot of resources, but of course the skills that the developers the Anthropic developers have, being the ones that are building this tool, but of course
Mhm.
they can go even faster than the most skilled developer using the tool, right?
Yeah.
um but I don't know how it's going to look like. um I mean, the only thing that I can potentially see in the future is an incredible acceleration of development.
Yeah.
Another thing that I can definitely see in the future is this, like a lot of people are saying, well, software is dead. You don't need software anymore,
Mhm.
um, because people can write their own software. I
Yeah.
think I think that's not true
It's not at all.
completely.
I mean, no.
Um, you can build stuff, but like there are. like building software is writing the code to make something that works. It's something,
Hmm.
and yes, that's been solved as we speak, and it's getting better and better every day. But making software that solve problems for the right people and solving the right problems, that's a different story.
Cool.
If we get to a point that you can build 100 versions of a solution, and you have some kind of agentic system that it simulates humans, and
Hmm.
they can test it out in a way that they can say this is the perfect version, and we roll it out, is going to have 100% of of success. Like there is no way that this fail.
Hmm.
Cool. But in the meantime, we still need people thinking about these problems and thinking about these solutions, and then you know making them alive and put it into people's hand and listen to them and going into this feedback. What is definitely changed is the speed of this feedback.
Yeah.
Like when you used to do a prototype or something, making the prototype could take 2 weeks, and then getting people into the prototype maybe a week, and then collecting the feedback and analyzing the feedback, and making a decision out of that feedback and out of that process, it might take you a month.
Hmm.
um Now it's a day. Like
Yeah.
you do something in the morning, you put it into people's hand in after lunch. You
Yeah.
listen to that, you record that session, you record the video, you record everything, and then you come back, and then you have a bunch of agents analyzing that and saying your next move should be X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So now iteration is just faster.
Faster.
So I know a designer that works in I don't know if you remember Microsoft Office. In the old days, they had just
Iffy
small toolbars,
or what?
right? Well, Flippy, they had Flippy. They have small toolbars in there. I think it was Microsoft 2003 or 2000. I don't remember, but they released this complex toolbar that had like these big boxes. They
Hmm.
call it the ribbon,
Okay.
right? I knew a designer that works on that project, and it took them 5 years to ship that,
Oh, yeah.
right? For like they did hundreds of analysis and user studies and user experience
Hmm.
process, and you know anything you can think of.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's possible to build software like in that way anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Awesome, Freddie. Last question. I want to finish this episode with this question. Like, and I want to make it real practical. Like, you've been at this for 18 years, probably more, right? 18 years at .cms, but you have plenty of history. And you came up through the code, you made the leap into product, and now you are, let's say, on the other side, right? Like the decision making side, implementing stuff and whatever, right? But there are a lot of developers watching us, listening to us. And what will be your advice? What would your advice be regarding this AI, cloud code, agents, and whatever? Because a lot of them are just like, should I continue doing this, or should I just go into pursue an influencer's career on TikTok or Instagram or whatever? What will be your advice?
So that's a tough one. I think that's a question that I don't think they have an option.
Yeah.
So that's my point. I don't think they have an option. I think that the market will kick them out
Okay.
of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't get on board into AI and how AI changed the way that you build products, right? Um, the market will kick you out. And I've seen a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've seen at least personally, or people that I know in real life,
Mm-hmm.
at least 3 people um, that have teams that are letting people go because they want to embark into the AI software development.
Yeah.
They're like, I can't have you anymore because this changed. right? And the way that I can see it is like, imagine that um, imagine that we start using Stack Overflow to answer questions about software, and it was great, right? A lot of people were working in Stack Overflow and using Stack Overflow as a source of information to solve your software problems, your code problems.
Uh-huh.
Imagine that when Stack Overflow was out, you have developers that said, "I don't want to touch um, Stack Overflows. I'm going to go and read
And that's
that 1,000-page book
yeah,
until I found the solution buried there,
the
and I'm going to
documentation.
create that. I'm going to read the documentation in that book until I found the answer there, and I'm going to test this thing manually
Yeah,
1,000 times until I find the solution." So my coworker went to a Stack Overflow and find the solution and read the code and understand it and solve it in a half of a day.
yeah.
But in my case, I'm gonna take a week, right? And I can focus on
Makes
anything more.
sense.
It's the exact same thing. If you deny the use of AI in your software development, you're denying your career evolution. And the only career that you can see the evolution um, that is differs from other careers um, is software. Like the amount of times that I'm seeing software change, how you build it, how you produce it, how you distribute it, how you market it in 20 years, countless, right?
Exactly.
Um, so I don't think they have an option. I don't think that the people they don't want to use it, they don't have an option.
Good. Good. Freddie, this has been generally a great conversation. The kind where you walk away thinking differently about something you thought you already understood. Thank you for being here in the Scaling Dilemma. Thank you for being this open about your processes and for showing us what it looks like to keep your roots while climbing. Tell us, please, where can people find you? Like the
Yeah.
podcast, your X account.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I mean, everybody, I'm super happy to talk about my experience because
Thank
that's
you
what I
for
do.
sharing with us.
And you can find me on X
Hmm.
on at F Montes, which is Freddy Montes, just the F.
Yeah.
We have a podcast. I have a podcast with a friend that is called Ocurres o te encaramas.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to translate that in English, but it's basically this idea of what I'm saying. You don't have an option,
Yeah.
and we talk about how AI is changing software development. Um, it's a little bit crazy, but I think I love it. I love to be there. And basically, that podcast came out because we had these conversations in private, and
Hmm.
we said, "Dude, I think I think some people might want to hear this," which is very, a lot of people think that,
Hmm.
but we said, let's just go for it. And so far, good. And yeah, you can find me in X. I'm always there, Twitter in Spanish. I'm thinking about having an X on English. I might do that. I don't know,
Probably, right? That
but
would be
mostly in
appreciated.
X. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, Freddie. Bye bye. Freddie says something near the end of our conversation that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I asked him what he'd tell developers who are still wondering if they still have a future in this industry. And he didn't say learn AI. He didn't say pivot to product. He didn't give a list of skills to acquire. He said, I don't think they have an option. And then he made it concrete. He said, imagine Stack Overflow launched and some developers refused to use it. Kept reading the 1,000-page book, kept testing manually. Their coworkers solved the problem in half a day using Stack Overflow. They took a week. Nobody fired them, nobody punished them. The work just moved, and they didn't. That's what's happening right now. Not as a threat, as a fact. The developers who are going to thrive aren't the ones who write the most code. They are the ones who understand the problem deeply enough that writing the code or directing an agent to write it is just the easy part at the end. Freddy figured that out 18 years ago, before AI, before agents, before any of this. He just kept asking the same question at every level of his career. Not how do I build this, but what should we build and why? Turns out that question doesn't get automated, it gets more valuable. And that is the scaling dilemma.